Good morning and be welcome, everybody, to this information session open to the public opinion. Representatives of the Mexican market, of the international market, communication, media, and every stakeholder. My name is Erika Paredes, and I'm an advisor for Latin America regarding the alliances of the UNOPS. Today is with us in a virtual session due to some pandemic issues. Okay, perfect. So we'll continue today. You are with us in a virtual room in Zoom with several representatives of the Mexican market. Everybody regarding the chambers such as Canifarma, AMI, FAMELAF, ANAFAM, INEFAM, AMEPRES, ANADIM, AMEJI, ANADIS, CANACINTRA, the National Association for Laboratories Distribution, and the Entrepreneurship Council. Also, we have a huge delegation. Here is with us some representatives from the embassies, as well as chambers of commerce from Colombia, France, Germany, South Korea, Canada, Cuba, Netherlands, Nicaragua, among others. Also, we have a huge audience that is following us on YouTube, and here we have also invited some communication media and other agencies that have participated with us last year's sessions, as well as the public opinion. Today we have the honor to broadcast from the INSABI, from the Institute of Health for Wellbeing. And the YouTube broadcasting is being done in Spanish and also in English, because what we're looking for is to achieve reaching the majority of the interested countries. The casting will be available after this session in the YouTube link, so that you can have access at any moment and you can spread it. The objective of today's meeting is to have an open information session, as I have been saying from the beginning. What we are looking for is to foster the transparency, access to information, and these are the channels that we have seen as the most appropriate ones. Today we have a session that is going to be focused on the bidding processes for 2022, as well as to present the results and the progress of the procurement of this year. Today I have the honor to be together with Maestro Juan Antonio Ferrer Aguilar, who is the General Director of the Institute of Health for Wellbeing, INSABI. Also Alejandro Calderon Alipi, who is the Head of Coordination for the Drug Supply and Medical Equipment. And also Giuseppe Mancinelli is here with us, who is the Adjoint Director for Latin America and the representative of Mexico of UNOP, and Laura Claridge, who is the Director of the Drug Procurement Project and Healing Material here in Mexico. Today's methodology is going to be very similar to previous sessions. We have had the opportunity to receive from you different questions. We have received several questions, and after the presentation that we're going to have, we're going to continue with those questions. And also, if you haven't answered any question, we have enabled the Slido channel. Slido is www. With the code 2.1, and also you have that there in the chats of this session, as well as in the YouTube links. So please follow your questions and your questions there, and we're going to be answering them throughout this session. Without further ado, I would like to continue the session with Professor Ferrer. So please, can you help us with your opening words? Thank you very much. It is very kind from you, Erika Paredes. We welcome Giuseppe Massinelli and Laura Garrich. Alejandro Calderon is also here with me. Look, today we have an information session, and I would really like to emphasize that as a background, the agreement that we have signed with the UNOPS and the INSABI, the Institute for Health of Well-being, is a coordination project from the procurement since 2021 until 2024. I mean, because of different media, we want to have an influence in the public opinion of the people, as there was a situation in which the signed agreement, that is an agreement that was celebrated on 31st of July 2020, only was valid for that year, and it was for the procurement of 2021, and actually it's not like that. This agreement is within a framework agreement that the UNOPS have signed together with the Foreign Affairs Ministry on February of 2019. Here you have the background of the specific agreement that the UNOPS is doing with the Institute of Health for Wellbeing. That's why we have 16 months working on this, having on-site meetings and remote meetings among the UNOPS team at any time of the day, 24 hours available, with Alejandro Calderon Alipi's team, who is the responsible in Mexico and the healthcare sector for the procurement and distribution of drugs. Look, when we arrive to this stage of the process, we have acknowledged from our side the different deficiencies. But we are not only worried about that, because what we have done is to solve each of the situations on an accelerated basis, together with the UNOPS and in a very simple work by getting into an agreement. This is the vision that we have with the UNOPS, and as we planned it, this is how we solve things, and this is how we're working on them. Regarding the background that I just mentioned, look, for you to have an idea of what is happening in a consolidated procurement process, I would like to tell you that in our institutions, we haven't found a registration of consolidated procurement. The acquisition, the centralized procurement or acquisition, was in favor of only 10 distributors in Mexico. This is what they called consolidated purchase or procurement. And what the UNOPS showed us or taught us from the beginning of the agreement was the integration of a demand that we as institutions have learned to respect, because this is a criteria that the UNOPS is using, so that there is a background and a support for a consolidated procurement. This has been done by the 32 federate entities of the country. The IMSS, that is the Mexican Institute of Social Security, is the Institute for Social Security and Services for State Working, and CEMAR, which is the Secretariat of the Navy. The East, the Chiapas, and the different entities around Mexico. So look, this in an extreme sense, this is what is the beginning for the consolidated procurement. Then we have different criteria, but this is not the reason of our meeting today. In order for us to be able to have this purchase, we modified the acquisition law and the regulations of our country. In order to be able to see the outputs and the results, I would like to invite you or to let you know that today we have 186 vendors, from which out of them 220 belong to the purchase that was done by the UNOPS, and from the items that were released from the UNOPS to the INSABI, we have 166 vendors or suppliers. Reciprocity among countries is very high. We have had a very high participation of more than 19 countries with the support of the ambassadors of Mexico in Asia, in Europe, in America, where the Foreign Affairs Ministry instructed all the ambassadors to work in favor of the health sector consolidated procurement. And why I'm saying this? Because once the UNOPS released to the INSABI the codes for the acquisition, the instruction from the President Andrés Manuel López Obrador was to gather a working table with all the institutions of the healthcare sector and to continue with the consolidated procurement process of the healthcare sector. And this is what we have done. That's why we have been very working in a very coordinated basis with the Ministry of Health that is under the charge of Colegial Coser Varela, also with the Health Council, so that every consumable are within the registry, the national registry, and also we are coordinated with COFEPRIS, and also here I include the UNOPS, so that every drug or medicine that enter into this country will have a sanitary registry. And taking advantage of this information session from the UNOPS, the INSABI, and the healthcare system, it is fake that there is any drug coming into our country without any sanitary registration. Every medication, every drug that is being distributed at the national level, they all have sanitary registry. So I have already mentioned about the different institutions that are working in this consolidated purchase. And also I would like to mention some of the criteria that were determined in order to have the UNOPS buying the medicaments in the 2022 year during the first 6 months. Because this is another thing that is constantly read at the news, where it said that we're starting a procurement process for drugs starting from January 2022. And this is another lie that is being mentioned by the media. The purchase that we are bidding today is for the second semester of 2022. For the people that think that there is not going to be any medication, we want to tell you that from January to June there was already the procurement done by the UNOPS and also by part of every institution in the healthcare sector. Look, for us to purchase, the UNOPS released 1,012 codes in June 2021. There is a substitution of codes due to the clinical improvement and public health. And this is a scientific work that is being done by different experts of the health institutions. What is my point here? The clinical improvement has to do with this country because in 2014, 2013, in this country, there were no updates done in terms of all the drugs that were coming into our country. So we gave certain number of codes to the UNOPS, and the UNOPS went out to the world to do some procurement of some codes that weren't that didn't exist anymore. I mean, that product wasn't produced anymore by the laboratories. So we needed to talk to the General Health Board in order to update the National Registry of Health or Drugs Consumables. And today we are continuing with this review. Those codes that are under review and that possibly are not under evolution, I mean, those are not new medication or have been overcome by some others, those are the ones that are going to be examined by the medical group and are going to insert some new codes, and maybe those are going to be given to the UNOPS or to the procurement department of the INSABI. In 2019, we consider 3,640 codes, and to date we have 2,200 codes that are defined already with technical criteria from the experts in the subject matter. I mean, the medication that we're buying are already valid, and we are going to keep on working in order to have the best medication in our country. Another criteria is that the institutions of the healthcare sector, they consider that according to the Mexican law, the patent codes and the unique source by definition should be allocated to only one distributor, to only one supplier. So that's why we requested the UNOPS in favor not to uh, reimburse a commission, that those codes would be acquired by the Mexican government, and this was an agreement. So that was a different criteria as well. Another criteria is the purchase procedures according to the Mexican law. To us, those are nimbler, because after the procurement, now we can request for the supply. In the UNOPS criteria, they have further steps in order to reach the supply or the demand of the medication. And this was also considered by the Mexican government in order to have a sector procurement done from the INSABI in a faster basis. Also, the classification of offer of bidders, as I was saying before, and that increased the providership to countries such as Japan, Korea, Cuba, Canada, and right now in many other parts of the United States. The additional benefits of the consumable offers and suppliers, because we have some suppliers that are delivering to the house of the patient. And that's also working in favor of the Mexican government. And we're taking into consideration also those codes in order to favor the healthcare institution and especially the patient, so that they can receive their medication throughout the months of the treatment. I mean, instead of receiving just one box of medication, maybe they can receive medication for 3 months. And we thought that the administration of contracts by a direct manner by the institutions, this is something that we have been talking with UNOPS in order to have greater data regarding the procurement that is done by the UNOPS. Look, to us, UNOPS have successful procurement backgrounds with better prices than the ones that we have registered, and with state of the art suppliers, international suppliers. I mean, the UNOPS and the INSABI together, they have purchased with better prices and with the required quality by the medications in order to enter into our country. The experience from the UNOPS in the comprehensive planning strategy has been also another important factor in order to continue working with the UNOPS. And what I was saying before regarding the global demand of the healthcare sector, that we have registered it in a calendar to deliver it after every month of the year. I mean, we can say from every institution which is the quantity required in January, February, March, or if they do not require something in April, but maybe they require something in June. I mean, so we have the quantity and the health establishment in a federate entity or a family medical unit of the IMSS in which this medication may be required from the Mexican Institute of Social Security. The purchase to diverse vendors and suppliers, the monopoly purchases that were happening in Mexico in previous years, are not existing anymore. And I mean, We are purchasing, and I repeat, we are purchasing with better conditions, with better prices, and those conditions are in favor for the healthcare sector. Actually, the institutions of the healthcare sector and the UNOPS, we are all improving the hiring processes and the payment schemas. Then I will say that to all the laboratories and who are seeing this broadcasting of this information sector, that the Mexican government has enough resources for the purchase of medication, that the Mexican government has done every payment to the UNOP so that the UNOPs at the same time can pay to the suppliers. If we need to work together better in this process, we will acknowledge it, and we are going to do it together with the Treasury Ministry, together with the Public Function Ministry, because there is a premise that we have under instruction of our President Lopez Andres Obrador, is that every laboratory is receiving their payment as quick as possible. I mean, upon the delivery, or maximum 72 hours after we need to pay for the medication, because the Mexican government has already spent and given us the resource. And the resource is on behalf of the UNOPS. All the resource was already transferred as a payment of all the medications that the Mexican government is acquiring. The instruction that has been given to the healthcare sector, the president of the United Mexican States, Lopez Andres Obrador, has to give certitude and to be far away from every corruption act. So that's why we work together with the major office of the Treasury Ministry, and also with the Public Function Ministry, as well as its internal control body for the case of the INSABI. But here, this is how we work with every institution. If any of the companies here have a data or a fact that a officer is trying to execute an illicit behavior, we are calling you to start a report before the authorities, because this is something that is going to be excluded totally from this government. I mean, we cannot charge any company because they are selling to us. This is only a support given by the laboratories, that they are supplying us in a good manner every medication that is required for the distribution. The union of the healthcare sector today, it's very clear, and this was also achieved by the UNOPS, to have a joint healthcare sector that is working as an interinstitutional team. Here in INSABI offices, and also from the healthcare ministry, UNOPS is working, but also the IMSS, the Mexican Institute of Social Security, the Institute for Social Security and Services for State Workers, SEDENA, Ministry of National Defense, SEMAR, Secretariat of the Navy, ISTETECH, and ISTEOMS. We all work for a only objective, to serve the people and to honor the commitment of the President Lopez Lopez Obrador, that all the consumables may be free and in the best quality for the treatment of a patient. Thank you very much, Juan. And I think that I will give the floor to Giuseppe so that he can complement whatever it's foreseen for this session. Good morning, everybody. Dear Juan, thank you very much for that words and to host us here in the INSABI for this third open information session, a special hello to Alejandro, Eric, and Maria Laura, and thank you everybody that is participating here in this session. I understand that there is a numerous participation, and I'm totally happy for this because today objective in a big part has been it's regarding the information as Juan has done to let you know which is the information what we have been doing throughout these 16 months as Juan was recalling, and especially what we are going to be doing for the following steps and information for the procurement of 2022. That's why I'm very happy to have a high presence, and we want to take advantage of this big assistance in order to let you know every detail. So I have a presentation because I'm going to be showing you a lot of information. So I hope that this information allow you to follow the logic of the information that we're going to have. So we will start with the presentation, please. So basically, this presentation has two big parts. The first one is to let you know about the purchase of 2021. I know that there has been a huge interest from the media, but also from the suppliers and embassies, and also from the people to get to know what has been done up to now. Obviously, what I'm going to present right now is a summary because it would be very difficult to present right now what we are doing, but especially those important aspects. Let's start with the three main objectives of the consolidated purchase. First of all, to manage the promptly supply of the medication with a quality product. But this has been very important regarding the work that we have been doing throughout all the process in order to get a big result in terms of the supply. The second objective is to promote transparency in the consolidated process and to prevent corruption. And therefore, as Juan was recalling as well, the UNOPS has executed a fair public management framework, and this is a frame regarding the purchase of the UNOPS by which we have different fundamental and basic principles that allow us to have game rules, very clear rules of the game, and to reduce any corruption act. Some of the principles that I would like to mention are the ones of having efficiency and efficacy during the procurement, how we achieve that the bidding processes are clearer and that there is a what we call normally a fair floor, equal conditions for all the suppliers, Mexican and international suppliers, and that makes the to have known conditions, clear conditions, and to have significant savings. We're going to see some numbers and figures later on. Another principle is the diversity and inclusion to make sure that every company that is here will have a majority managed by women, and this is something that we haven't achieved up to now, and this is another fundamental principle, the use of technology and innovation as well. And just as an example, with what is the difference from a bidding process already with boxes, papers, that is obviously subject to the discretionality principle, to go to an electronic system for the procurement that will allow everything to be transparent, open, that all the suppliers can participate in this platform, and that there is no discretionality in all the bidding processes. Those are important aspects. As well, the participation of the private sector. To us, it's very important that the private sector can participate in the wider form, and then later on I will explain you a little bit what we have been doing during this approach in the pharma, in national and international industry. I mean, there is a lot of principles that, and that's why I wanted to emphasize this part because it's very important. This is the action part in which we have been working, and that's why we aspire to do the purchase of 2022. And the last objective is to generate savings and increase the performance of the public funds. This is what I've been saying from the beginning, to do more with less, to buy more medication with less resources. And this is obviously for the benefit of the Mexican people, for the benefit of the investment programs that we have in Mexico. And it's also important to us to be able to execute this. Next one, please. So now we're going to start talking about the results, about the success of the 2021 purchase. Well, the codes that UNOPS had acquired is 1,015. Those are divided between 707 medication codes and 343 for healing materials. And this represents almost 878 millions of purchase pieces, and this is what we have been doing since we began in these months. And the next half of the year are gonna be delivered. We have had the possibility to have more than 161 suppliers with responsible practices. And what do I mean by responsible practices? They have respect the rules of the game. They have been very exhaustive regarding the respect for the conditions that have been established. Those suppliers that have not been respecting these conditions, and this has go in line with the transparency process. In terms of amount, those codes are represented almost 45,000 millions of pesos, and actually in dollars correspond to 2.2 billion dollars. This is a very significant number. And also in terms of countries, the openness of the market that we wanted to project is 7 supplying countries that have been acting as beneficiaries by the consolidated procurement process. I think that there was a problem with the microphone, and I hope that you have heard me well. The next one, please. So now we're going to see in a greater detail what these codes represents in therapeutical groups. Here you can see the huge detail by different group. I know that there is an especial interest in some of those codes, such as oncology, or for example some others that are also important to address all the patients that are in a greater need. Here you can see the huge detail of the codes that we have been buying, and up to date we have delivered 270 million pieces since the beginning of the process. What is foreseen to be delivered in December is 60 million of pieces, and with this we will reach by the end of 2021 with 330 million pieces being delivered. And if we see this from a point of view regarding the percentages of the compliance of the codes, I can tell you that because of the medication codes or healing material, or maybe from any of the groups, or almost every therapeutical group is important, including the oncological codes. We are over 95% in average of the compliance in terms of delivery based on the timeline that we have established. This is a timeline that obviously has all the information that we need to have in order to get to know who is the vendors, the suppliers, the codes, the pieces, and the places where all this is going to be distributed. So based on this delivery timeline, we have an average of 25% in terms of compliance for the delivery. And this is very important because I have also heard a lot of criticism of lack of supply, but it is important to get to know which is the correct information. Next one, please. And well, as Juan also was mentioning before, the bidding process that we have known in 2021 has a coverage of 12 months. That means that the first half of 2022 is already uh, secured in terms of general codes and patent codes. That means that there is no concern in terms of supply because the bidding process is being done right now because the first half of the year is already covered. And this is covered in terms of 884 codes that are divided in 548 of medication codes and 333 of healing materials. And in terms of pieces, is 549 million pieces are going to be delivered in the first half of 2022. This is already programmed, and there is a timeline regarding these deliveries. We're going to see some of the benefits as well of the work that we have been doing here. And I want to acknowledge and honor the continuous learning that we have had in these last 16 months. We have learned a lot working together with the INSABI, with Juan, with Alejandro, and with the full team. This is a very valuable work, and we are always trying to move forward and to have success. Obviously, there are limitations, and there is always an area for improvement, but also there are some important results and benefits that I would like to emphasize, such as the savings. If you remember, one of the objectives was to execute the purchase in an efficient manner. Right now, we have estimated savings. Obviously, we need to wait for the end of the delivery of the medication, but around 10,000 million pesos, that is around $500 million. Also, if we see this in terms of efficiency, in general terms of the percentage, we have improved more than 30% in the generic prices and 10% in patents. Obviously, in the patents, it's a little bit more difficult because we need to have a negotiation process with a unique supplier. But even though those conditions and limitations, we have achieved a 10% saving in the patents as well. The decentralization of the market, that's another important aspect. In this moment, we have almost 100 suppliers that represent the 80% of this medication spending. This is a very important data because this is emphasizing the difference with what we had in the management of 2018, that based on the analysis, the data that we had, that concentration of 80% was in 80 suppliers. That was a very limited number. So this open competitivity, this decentralization of the market is very important to us. We want to acknowledge this because actually we are opening the market, and we pretend to have this positive trend continuing for the purchase of 2022, that we may have greater Mexican suppliers and international suppliers. We know that the openness of the market, we have had it with 7 countries, but also it is important to emphasize that most of the contracts that we have allocated have been with Mexican companies, because obviously there is a very advanced and sophisticated industry here in Mexico, and about this I would like also to make some remarks. About this, I would like to emphasize some considerations because in a very legitimate matter, there is a lot of information, access to information. Here I would like to emphasize some things that we have mentioned in the past, in the previous events. I would like to emphasize which are the access, which are the different channels in order to have this access to information. We have the page of the project. You can see the link there. And this presentation is going to stay there, so you'll have further access to all the information that you may require. Here you can see that there is information regarding the list of the supplier, the codes, the pieces, the unit pieces that were bought by the international bidding process. All this is available. Also, the joint communications and the progress reports between the UNOPS and the INSABI, what everything has to do with the bidding process, progress and photography, so that you can see that the deliveries have been executed regarding the frequent asked questions, and the procurement manuals, and that has to do with the rule of the licitations that were managed by the UNOPS. And all this is very important, and I want to emphasize this because the information is there, and obviously we're totally open to be able to provide you with all the information that is required and that you cannot find throughout all these channels. Next one, please. Also, this is another point that I wanted to emphasize, I believe that during the first event that we had last year in December, it's a little bit about this fair floor, the game, the rules of the game, this open market and an equality of opportunities. That means that all the international Mexican companies, SMEs or big companies, they will have the same information in order to participate in this bidding process. And that creates a virtuous circle to be able to change the paradigm of the consolidated purchase. And we're learning this in a jointly manner. This is the most important part that I would like to emphasize. There is no hidden or privileged information. The information is for all the vendors. There is an equal access so that all vendors and suppliers can compete under the same conditions and will win the one that offers the best conditions, which is the objective. The objective is not to have just one supplier participating. The objective is to have 100 suppliers participating, the biggest number possible, because that will create first a very important signal from the market that is acknowledging that the conditions are clear, because whenever there is no a lot of suppliers, that's another signal of several reasons, and that the rules of the game are not well established. So we want to have the greatest number of qualified suppliers in order to have better prices as well. Promptly access, and some are the most important principles that I wanted to emphasize. In terms of communication, the communication channel that we have kept throughout these years, and that is very complete, and I would not like to get into details on the operational communication that we have every day with the INSABI, with the colleagues and the different institutes. That's a joint effort, obviously, but I would like to also honor and mention some of the institutions that have been working with us in those meetings. We have had several number of meetings with the chambers, with the Association of the Pharma Industry, of medication and healing material. This is a process that we have started months ago, and we want to have some periodic meetings of high level. When we want to address important aspects, I would like to listen to the concerns of the industry in order to try to solve those aspects. But also there are some technical tables, operational tables that are addressing very concrete aspects that has to do with the process, whether the agreement of the UNOPS, the payment, the delivery, the relationship with the logistic operator. There is a round table in which we address all these concerns, and I would like to thank for the commitment of the pharma industry that has been great, and also the pressure that they do in a legit manner in order to keep on moving forward. And we're going to continue with this information channel. We have carried out 3 public events with the suppliers, with which we have agreements also to talk about the long-term agreement. And so this is a continuous dynamics, a continuous activity with the private sector, with those companies that have been hired or allocated. Also, we have organized public events such as this one, and we want to keep on having those communication channels open for the events and the communication purpose. Also, I would like to emphasize something that to us as UNOPS and United Nations is very important, which is the sustainability. This is a general aspect, an important aspect that obviously could be uh, established with different actors. We have sustainability program that is called DRIVE because of its acronym in English, and it has to do with the sustainable acquisitions. And we have started with this program since long time ago. Actually, we're even talking about this with the public function secretariat, but also with the suppliers and the INSABI. And it is a voluntary initiative, it's true, but the commitment and the response from the suppliers and the institutions has been incredible, and I would like to congratulate you for this great commitment. We had a last week a meeting with the UNOPS in order to talk about the suppliers and how is the progress, which is the maturity level that the companies have. Actually, it's very high. I personally have participated in a meeting with one of the suppliers, and I have to say that was incredible to see that commitment to want to demonstrate that the companies are also doing their part. And this obviously is a global commitment. We're talking about the 2030 agenda, the UN sustainable goals, and obviously the Mexico has to do their part and the public sector as well. We want to say that we have several suppliers that also are part of this increasement to the diversity and gender. Also, we had two meetings with women that are leading the access to health, and I think that here in this picture you can see one of these two events that we have had, and I also very happy because this is part of the inclusion focus on gender and the commitment of of the women on those events, and I hope that we can keep on improving this part. Also, in the work that we have been doing, there is an important aspect regarding the quality assurance of the medications. And here you can see some of the activities that we're carrying out regarding the pharma vigilance and technovigilance regarding the detection, assessment, and prevention of the adverse events in medications and healing materials, the monitoring in sanitary alerts, the recurrent inspections of the products. There is a huge mechanism that is placed into commission together with the INSABI, the COFEPRIS, and all the competent authorities in our country. But also we want to support on this in this effort in order to assure not only the promptly supply, but also the quality supply. And here we can start talking about the demand of 2022. Juan has already mentioned and explained very well the criteria, but here I will go into detail of the figures and that I understand there is a big interest from our audience. So the next slide, please. The required demand to the UNOPS for the procurement of the second semester, and this I would like to emphasize because, and I will repeat it many times, we are talking about the second half of 2022 because the first half of 2022 is already secured. We have received 634 codes that are divided into 361 for medication and 273 for healing material. We're talking about more than 271 million of pieces of medication and 116 million pieces of healing material. Here we can see the demand, broken down demand by therapeutic group. I'm not going to get into detail, but you can see here which are the therapeutical groups that are the most important ones in which we're going to have a better procurement. We have here 28 codes of oncological medication, and here we have the list. And this is a big priority in our country in order to treat the people that need this type of medication in order to continue living and saving their lives. Also, here we have the better detail of the 10 institutions that are part of the procurement process. So we have here the most important one, the number of codes is 634, so that's why this sum up is not going to result into the total, but actually this is more or less the codes that have been required by the different institutions regarding the consolidated purchase. And in the second column we can see the volume of pieces that are going to be purchased by every institute, and those are the codes that are going to be delivered in the second semester of 2022. So this information is going to be shown in the bidding documents, but I repeat once again that we're responding to the need of the healthcare sector for the second half of 2022, and this is a very important in order to anticipate some problems that could warranty this access and the supply that will end on in 2021. So we are on time. We're on time of sending out the bidding process. Right now, we're going to see in detail the bidding process, and the delivery sites are also going to be done in the central warehouses that have been allocated and located in the metropolitan area of Mexico City, as it was done before. Also, I would like to emphasize once again the multi-year purchase, and I would like to reflect this from a different point of view regarding the codes. We have 884 codes that will need to be delivered from January to June 2022. They are already hired and allocated. Sorry for repeating this so much, but I want to be very clear. And other 549 million of pieces that are going to be delivered from January to June 2022. And as Juan mentioned regarding the consumables, the best prices that we have achieved that have been very important for the consumables, as well as market research, bidding data of the bidders. I mean, in order to have a virtuous cycle and continuous improvement for the bidding processes, the pretension of having a wider market or a better market, better prices, market researches, in order to understand the complexity of this big sector. And this is only the third part of my presentation. And here I would like to emphasize the strategy for the procurement of 2022. I think that is the most interesting part for our audience at this moment. So we're going to give you some details regarding this procurement process. Go ahead. Before anything, I would like to explain in a brief manner regarding the complexity that the consolidated purchase represents. I would not get in greater detail, but maybe you can see that there is a multiplicity of different, multiple actors that are participating, obviously multiple interests and multiple rules, principles as well. So this complexity, what is doing that is making very interesting the work that we're doing together in order to keep on improving. But we have the INSABI, the Institute of Health for Wellbeing, that is requiring the different requirements by the different institutions. Then we have the INSABI, who is doing the procurement and the consolidation. INSABI is the one that notifies and manages the institutions and the different operators, and the UNOPS is the one that makes the bidding process, hires and coordinates the deliveries to all the warehouses. And also the INSABI is the one that coordinates with the operators the final delivery to the end entities, to the end destination. So there is always a big limitation in order to keep on improving this into the future from any point of view. Next one, please. So January, June, here you can see the details as I was mentioning before. So there is not a huge concern in that sense because we have already warranted this. But for July and December 2022, we're going to have some international public bidding processes. And here we're also going to indicate the long-term agreements with the suppliers. And this is an aspect that I would like to further explain, because this is a way in which we can minimize any supply problem that we may have, and based on the result of the bidding process as well. We have done this in the purchase of 2021. We have had events regarding the explanation with different suppliers, some suppliers that have signed with the UNOPS these long-term agreements that will allow them to have a continuity in terms of the supply. And this is also going to be explained in the bidding documents that we're going to launch in a sooner manner. And also this is going to be part of the quality assurance and the security of the supply. So we're going to have two international bidding process. The first one is going to be for medication and the 361 codes, and another international bidding process for healing materials with 273 codes. This is going to be done very soon. We're going to see the timeline soon as well in few minutes, but those are international bidding processes, always following principles of optimus relationship between quality and price, impartiality of integration and transparency, and effective competency that I have mentioned before. Also, I would like to emphasize that we, together with the INSABI, with the Institute of Health for Wellbeing, we are doing a lot of efforts in order to get closer to the market, in order to be able to open more and more the market. We have some approaches with some embassies and commercial representations. We're also going to have some previous meetings for the offers in order to train the bidders and to get to know the UNOPS platform and which are the frequently asked questions. Also, we're going to place those bidding documents in English apart from Spanish as the standard dictates. We're also going to have them translated in English in order not to have any obstacle in the bidding process for those international companies that would like to compete in our bid. Also, we have a continuous effort in order to be able to find those spaces, those sources, in order to avoid any problem regarding the allocations and the contracts of the codes that we need to do in order to secure the supply 100%. Also, there is an important piece of information, especially for those suppliers that have already participated in the UNOPS bidding process and the ones that have been hired. Those bidders that have received a pre-qualification letter in the 2021 bidding process will need to present less information. There was already a filter overcome, and for 2022 they will present less information. That, from one side, is an acknowledgement for those companies that have been doing well their work, but also is a part that will make nimbler the bidding process and to have better results in the less time possible. And obviously, the different types of agreement of the long-term agreements, as I was mentioning before. And that this slide and the following slide are slides that always need to be there. I think that you already know them, but I'm going to make a little reference to them. All the bidding processes of UNOPS are going to be published in the global market of the UN. The links are there. The companies that would like to participate and would like to be allocated, they need to be enrolled to the global market. The medication codes and the healing material codes are there. Please do not avoid this step so that you can see the published bidding processes. And also, we will have different communication channels, but also for you to enroll, because if you do not enroll, you are not going to be you are not going to have the possibility to participate. There are some official and free courses online, and this is very important. You don't need to pay for anything. Those are official courses, and you can have access to them in order to learn how to do it. Obviously, we are available for any information that you may require. And this other platform is the electronic purchasing platform of the UNOPS, and this is part of the innovation and technology. As I was mentioning before, all the information is open information, transparent information, and also you have there the link to learn about it, and the UNOPS is going to organize some events on this regard. So this is the timeline of the bidding process. You have been waiting long for this, but maybe this is the most relevant information for our audience. But it was very important to us to talk about the different progresses and the different events that we have had this year. So this is December. The next week we're gonna launch the two bidding processes for medications and healing material from the 7th to the 15th of December. UNOPS are gonna have some clarifying meetings with Mexican and international bidders and then they will get to know better the conditions so that they don't have any problem regarding the understanding of the documents and the essential conditions. And also, based on the calendar that we have right now, we have foreseen to open the offers on January 14th. So we're going to have almost all December and half of January for the preparation period of the offers by the suppliers and all the acceleration management that is done during the process. And we have an estimate of an estimate date of for January 14th in order to open the offers. And this other part of the signature of contracts, this is done by the UNOPS, and I will explain a little bit more about it. We estimate to start with this signature of the contracts in April 2022. We know due to the communications and the contact that we have had with the industries that the industry is requesting for at least 3 months for planning so that they get to know which are the periods in which they're going to hire so that they can produce the medications and to fulfill the supply. I think this is something important I would like to emphasize in this timeline, in this bidding timeline. So that's why our aspiration, our expectations is to start the signature of contracts in April so that the industry, the company may have this period of time to plan, to produce, and to start with the supply in July 2022. This is also very important. Next slide, please. And I almost finished what I was explaining you before. The sustainable practices, the good practices, best practices are making that an offering assessment process have different steps to comply. And we're very tough in UNOPS because we want to make sure that the winning companies are gathering all the conditions. So there is a verification process for the backgrounds and the due diligence, and there is an assessment for the formal criteria and eligibility evaluation of the qualification criteria or pre-qualification assessment on technical criteria. And there is a very important work regarding the different prices and rationality of the prices because we need to justify why we are hiring that company and why we are getting that price, especially if those prices are representing a saving or maybe not, they are not representing a saving, but we need to justify very well the reasons why. We are managing public funds. We have a great responsibility with the commitment that we have assumed with the Mexican government, and that's why we want to execute this jump seamlessly. So also there is another independent review by the contract committee because this is part of the surveillance, the control that we do, and also it's part of the bidding process. Next one, please. Well, this is the last slide, and it's talking about the recommendations. I have mentioned some of them, but the courses are already online, are official, and for free. So please have access to them and get all the information that you may need regarding the global market and the UNOPS bidding platform. And without further ado, I think that's it. I think that I have taken a little bit more time, but what was important was to share with you all the information. So once again, Juan Alejandro and INSABI, and here we are to serve you for the next session of Q&A. Thank you very much. Thank you, Giuseppe, for this explanation. I would like to thank you and Juan for the detail regarding the procurement and the results of 2021. I would like to reiterate that all this information is going to be available in an immediate manner. The presentation to the website, as we showed, proyectosalud.org, and the broadcasting in English and in Spanish. As soon as we finish this session, it will be available in the YouTube channels that we have enabled. Also, we would like to let you know that we are receiving the questions in slider.com, so we have received several of them. And to honor the time, I would like to start with them. Maybe, Alejandra, you can help us with the first one. They are asking us how the INSABI warranty that the deliveries are arriving in a promptly manner to the states, to the hospitals, and to the last mile end user. Good morning, everybody. Thank you very much for your participation of the more than 500 people that is watching right now live this event. And in order to answer all your questions, Erika, if you allow me, there is another similar question. Or maybe it's not that similar, but it's totally related to the one that I'm going to answer right now. That is about the payment. That also some of the colleagues in the social media have been asking us. We from the Mexican government, the INSABI is just a consolidator that allows us to facilitate, to enable the relationship with all the institutions together with the UNOPS, and also we, the people, to serve and to treat the people that is receiving this medication. In terms of the sector, we have seen that when these consumables arrive as they were bought in a consolidated manner, there is a last mile stretch that is missing. And here is the question: how we're going to warranty the arrival of all these consumables to the end user who is going to consume them? About this topic, the Mexican government has been working together with the 9 logistic operators that are helping us to execute this task to the state warehouses and also directly with institutions and with the states, with the state governments that are being strengthened regarding storaging and fleets of vehicles in order to empty all the warehouses that may have full of medication and to keep on providing velocity to the reception from the central logistic operator to the states and to the institutions. And why I'm saying this is related with the payments, because once the state warehouse is confirming of receipt regarding that medication in the state warehouse, not in the last mile. Here is where we send an official letter to the UNOPS in order to demonstrate that the consumables were already received in a successful manner. And then the UNOPS will do the payment to the suppliers. Maybe at the beginning there was an overload in the warehouses, but together with the Sedena or with the Ministry of National Defense, we're working on this warehouse in order to keep on executing the promptly payment to the suppliers. But in order to ease the suppliers, the resource, the money for this payment is already secured. This is just a managerial concern that we are already solving among the sector. In this part of the payments, and that's very good to have received this question, together with the UNOPS, we're already having conversation on this regard. Because when I say that the resource is already in the UNOPS for being able to pay needs to have the complete invoice already supplied. And what Hacienda is mentioning or suggesting is that the UNOPS require for the OK in order to have partial payments done. And I think this is going to be very good. For example, a vendor is required for a 1 million pieces supply and they have delivered and demonstrated 600,000. They don't need to wait until they deliver the other 400,000. They can charge before with the 60,000 pieces as they may be already received successfully. And this is the point that I just wanted to add on. Thank you, Alejandro. Yes, perfect. Thank you very much, Juan Alejandro. The next question, Laura, maybe you can help us with this. Throughout the negotiation tables regarding the 2022 procurement, it is required that the supply is for January 2022 and not for the second semester or the second half of the year. Can you make this clearer? Yes, thank you very much. Good morning, Juan Alejandro Giuseppe, and good morning and good afternoon to all our audience that is following us online. I think it's very promptly because we have received several questions on this regard regarding the supply from January 2022 and June 2022. And maybe Juan, you can complement on my answer. On our side, Erika, I can tell you that the codes that were allocated by the UNOPS from June, July, and August this year are being executed right now. And I'm not going to talk about the previous negotiations and the expedites purchases. Those codes were already allocated for a period of time of 12 months. So those codes that were allocated by the UNOPS during this period of time, they have an executing period from these contracts until June, July, or August of last year, depending on the contract. So those are regarding the acquisitions or the procurement that is being done by the UNOPS and the execution period of the agreements. So the public international bidding process that is gonna be launched in the UNOPS process is gonna be supplied from next year, July 2022. And maybe Juan, if you agree on this, or maybe Alejandro, you can comment a little bit about the supply period of 2022 from January 2022 that the INSABI is going to be receiving in order to complement the answer, because this has been a very recurring question regarding the supply for the first half of 2022 or the second half of 2022. As the colleagues of the UNOPS, we have already warranty 884,000 codes, and for the rest of 2022, in order to cover the need of our country, we, together with the Treasury Ministry, we're going to extend the contracts in order to address the first quarter of the 2022. And with all these volumes, we will be able to address this first quarter. Currently, we're receiving more than 500 billion pieces in January and in December and January, and later on in March, we're going to receive also great volumes that are going to be covering this need. And the Treasury Ministry is supporting us in the bidding processes for 2022, and that is showing a supply from January. But we have contemplated this already because we are aware that we are not experiencing a normal stage. We are also within the COVID-19 pandemic context. We know that there is still disruption in the production chain, in the raw material acquisition chain, and that's why this time frame was from January, so that the suppliers can secure the raw material and also to secure the production of the consumables that are required by the country. Thank you very much, Alejandro. In that same line, in order not to change of topic, we are asked how it's going to be how are you going to do it together with the UNOPS process, with the Public Function Ministry, and with the Treasury Ministry. It's going to be very similar as it was shown before. The work that was done previously when we defined the codes that were going to be acquired by this UNOPS mechanism and by the Mexican government by means of the Treasury Ministry together with the Public Function Ministry. At that point, we saw, and it was commented already by Professor Ferrer, that those were one of the priorities that we couldn't miss. That there was no possible to have a gap here, and the possibility of the acquisition law of Mexico in order to substitute the medication codes, in order to improve the medications, to update the treatment. We are looking for these facilities that are the minimum and maximum points in order to adjust this demand. And what we communicate later on to the UNOPS, and the UNOPS throughout their mechanisms had shown us that they are very good for the negotiations, that they have generated a lot of savings for the Mexican state, and that's why we gave to them the rest of the codes. Thank you very much, Alejandro. There is another question. Giuseppe, maybe you can help me. There is a lot of questions regarding the long-term agreements, and it says, according to the long-term agreements that were already signed and that could be extended for 2023, are you gonna use them in order to execute the procurement by the direct acquisition of the UNOPS? Or maybe you can elaborate a little bit more of how these long-term agreements are gonna be celebrated. And there are like two or three similar questions in this regard. Yes, sure. The long-term agreements is a modality that we have in UNOPS together with the suppliers that are participating in the bidding process. And this allows us to have a continuation system for the purchase. That means that the companies that are signing the long-term agreements will have the possibility to be able to extend those contracts that they have. What we're going to check in the bidding process that it's been done and that it's been executed at this point is that apart from the normal bidding conditions, we're also going to introduce the conditions or the long-term conditions. I mean, the participating companies are going to see the conditions, and I don't think that in this sense we will have any surprise because many of the companies that have participated in 2021 have already signed long-term agreements with us. So we pretend companies, apart from participating, to adhere to these conditions, and so that these long-term agreements could be a plan that will reduce the limitations of the supply. So those long-term agreements will last normally 3 years, and we can maintain, obviously, by respecting the certain conditions that they are mentioning, that we can have the supply for all this time and that we will not have any type of problem in regards of the supply. That's why we have included this in this bidding process and also in the previous process in order to secure the medication in our country. Thank you very much, Giuseppe. Maybe the next question, Alejandro, maybe you can help me to answer this question. UNOPS is going to support the Mexican government in the medications that are not contemplated in the market research of the INSABI for the fiscal year 2022. Yes, as I was mentioning some while ago, this is a coordinated effort with the UNOPS, the selection of the medication codes. And obviously, we did not publish them in the Mexican government websites. It's because this was already in agreement and that they are going to do it in the UNOPS processes. But this is a process that is totally in coordination with them. Okay, next question. Maybe Laura, you can help us with this. And it says, from which date you can send the questions for the clarification of the calling? Once the documents are published in the website, as I recall, maybe www.ongm.org. All the bidding processes that are done by the UNOPS are published in this website. From it was launched the bidding process that is going to be very soon. Then the bidders can start uploading all the consultations or questions that are creating some concerns on them. Okay, thank you very much, Laura. Next question, Giuseppe, maybe you can help me with this. Which are the main mechanisms for the transparency and due diligence that are going to be applied by the UNOPS during the procurement process, as it has been talked a lot about this topic? Sure. First of all, in order to understand the due diligence is part of the process, is one of the general principles that are done by the United Nations and the UNOPS, which is to guarantee that the participating companies may be eligible in every sense. So those are principles and reviews that are done by the system of the UN, and this is one of the main principles that has a sophisticated process of purchase. We're going to check the technical aspect, legal aspects that may not have had any problem and that may not have been underqualified because of some bidding process. So this is a very exhaustive process in terms of review. For example, there may be some forms or questions that are being asked to the companies in order to know if they have had any problem during previous bidding processes. It's a sort of self-certification that is being required. So from that point on, we do an exhaustive review of all these documents, declaration in terms in legal and also transparent terms, so that the companies that arrive to the end of the bidding process will not have any problem regarding sustainable practices and normal practices of the bidding processes. Obviously, all those companies that may have that problem are not going to be able to continue. In the bidding process that was undertaken in 2021, there was an important number of companies that were underqualified based on the due diligence process. Obviously, the due diligence process has to do with the back and forth process with the engagement of the companies of the bidders, and where we ask for information. It's not an unilateral process. It's a process of both parties where we need to address what UNOPS is requesting in order to have enough information about them. And then there is a committee regarding the eligibility of the bidders, and the X or Y company will be informed that they cannot continue with the process. Thank you very much, Giuseppe. So now the following question, Alejandro, maybe you can help us with this. Are you going to standardize the criteria for the reception of the products by the logistic operators? And another very similar, are you going to work with the same logistic operators for 2022? Yes, this work in order to standardize the criteria on the reception is already done. Actually, this is already published in the technical annexes of the hiring process of last year. This is already done. However, we're going to do some improvements as we have seen that there is a bottleneck in the warehouses for the reception of the consumables, and this is totally related with the payment problem with the previous question. So we're improving on that, and we're facilitating this so that the logistic operators will not have any further inconvenience in the time when they are doing the deliveries in the warehouses. Perfect. So another question, maybe Alejandro, and maybe the Professor Ferrer has already explained it, but it is another question. It was announced that in the bidding processes, the IMSS are going to be out of the consolidated procurement. Can you confirm this? No. Those are, I don't know which is the source of this information. We are working with IMSS, ISTE, SEDENA, CEMAR, and we have even delivered to the UNOPS this acquisition that we are just announcing today. And I repeat, this has been done with the Mexican Institute of Social Security teams, and together with them, we have done the acquisition. The fact that we only have the INSABI's name in every presentation is because the INSABI was the one that signed that specific agreement with the UNOPS. But in my intervention, I was quoting that the instruction from our President Andrés Manuel López Obrador was always to have a consolidated procurement of the healthcare sector. And this is what we're doing, and we're going to keep on working on this. Actually, from today morning, we are working together with the IMSS, with the ISTE, with Ministry of National Defense, with Public Function, as well as the Secretariat of the Navy, with CEDMAR. We're working on all these aspects. That's why I was pointing out that the digital or remote sessions that we have had in video conference and on-site meetings are almost on a daily basis. And also, Giuseppe explained this very accurately. Giuseppe has already pointed out that our meetings are daily meetings, whether remotely, by telephone, or on-site. So there is no institution of the healthcare sector that may take the consolidated procurement, as this is an instruction from our government that was instructed by the President Andrés Manuel López Obrador, and that's why we're here providing information, and also any information that you may ask us, we can gently and kindly give this information to you as soon as it is requested. So, in honor the time, I would like to ask this last question, and maybe later on we can have some final remarks. As we have done it in previous situations, we're collecting all your questions and we're gonna upload the answers in the website of Proyecto Salud Mexico ORG. So, Laura, they're asking me, the manufacturers that we already have contract with the UNOPS for the grain process, are we gonna be called out in order to extend our contracts? Erika, yes, if they are asking for the long-term agreements, yes. In this type of processes, and UNOPS in their purchases have established two contract methods. The first one is the contract that they have already signed for the 1050 codes and all our suppliers, and also we have called that these purchase order stipulates the different quantities. And additionally, as Mr. Giuseppe Mancinelli has mentioned, we have established an alternative method that is the long-term agreement signature with the same vendor, so that in case we require an additional quantity and in case the vendor is available to deliver it, we will activate this long-term agreement in a joint agreement with the vendor. Thank you very much, Laura. And with this, I would like to give the floor to Professor Ferra. Yes, also we have this part in our law and in the acquisition law and regulations, in which we can extend the contracts up to a 20% of what was allocated. We have done this for 2021 already, so that's why you may ask yourself why the supply of this year started after the first quarter. Actually, it was because of this, because we gave the instruction to extend those previous contracts of 2020 until 2021 in order to have the supply of medication or medical consumables in January, February, March, and April. And then what Laura Carrech was mentioning very well, that this was an expedite purchase that was done by the UNOPS for the beginning of this year. We call that expedite as not emergency purchase. But the UNOPS did very well for more than 200 codes, and you have already forgotten about this, but those medications that were acquired by the UNOPS were the ones that were required by the sector in order to complete the first half of the year, and this was undertaken by the UNOPS in a very nimble manner, agile manner, in a very good basis, and they fulfill with their purpose. And Erika Paredes was asking us regarding the logistic operators. Look, we do have, and we have given this information to the UNOPS, we have 9 logistic operators. If this was the case of having a logistic operator not being or not doing the distribution of their medications in a good basis in those regions that are pointed out for the country, we're going to use some other logistic operators. Yes, look, what our President Andrés Manuel López Obrador has asked us is to have medications reaching up to the patient, the end patient. And here I will say to the Mexican people that this is among this obligation could be fulfilled among everybody, because it's not only part of the UNOPS buying the medications and also being bought by all the institutions of health. The distribution has also to do with the good use of those medications. We are very concerned, so they arrived to the 12 locations that we established with the UNOPS, and that the UNOPS have complied in order to send them to these 12 warehouses. But also from those warehouses, they need to take them to the state distributors, and the state distributors to their state warehouses, and then from them to the pharmacy. And from the pharmacy, the medication should reach the patient for their treatment. So we're gonna look for some new schemes, as I announced when I was doing my intervention, by which the laboratory itself is gonna deliver the medication in the house of the patient. So we're doing this already, and this technical annex that we're doing for 2022 is already contemplating this, and I think that we're moving forward very well. This is also going to favor the payment for the laboratories. I mean, this is a pathway in which the laboratory itself is going to send with the logistic operators the medication, and with this they're going to send in a digital basis a picture with the delivery of the patient, and with this we have the full freedom to execute the payment immediately. That's why I was saying that we need to be a little bit more efficient in order to pay the invoice to the laboratories, because the laboratories at the international and global level have been doing a big effort, and that we need to honor by paying on time. And if the Mexican government has already considered those resources from every institution, then we need to reach the laboratories that have already delivered the medication. So thank you very much, Juan Giuseppe. I don't know if you would like to say some closing remarks. Yes, sure. Some closing remarks. First of all, thank you very much, Juan and Alejandro, to everybody. And what I want to say is that the process continues. What we wanted to let you know today and to inform you today is the progress that we have had up to now and what we are going to have in the next bidding process. We keep on doing this. We're going to keep on having the communication channels open as it should be. But what I want to tell you, and why I'm saying this, because I know that there is a lot of legit interest, but also what the government of Mexico is doing, and we as UNOPS, and as we are all contributing, it is a change, a transformation of great impact. So this may take time, but therefore the commitment of all the parties is required. We are a public part, and in Mexico we have this challenge, this responsibility. We as the United Nations, we are supporting. But if we don't have the effort, the commitment from all the parties, obviously this is going to be very difficult. And I would like to thank for the full support that we have received from the industry, from the companies, all the stakeholders and parties that have been participating. I know that there is concerns, and in certain manner you can express this. We are open to have a continuous dialogue, and what we want to make sure is to have a commitment to the global agenda of the United Nations and Mexico, and to work for the benefit of the population so that Mexican people can receive in a promptly basis the quality medications. This is our objective for which we're working, and the UNOPS objective is obviously to support you in this great event. And thank you very much for your trust in UNOPS. And thank you very much to all our virtual audience, at the audience that we have here. And with this, we'll close the session. Thank you very much, and good afternoon, everybody.